Good morning, and thank you so much for the nice words. It sounds very big when you say it like that. But yes, my name is Sophie. I'm from DFDS, been with the company for 6 years working with sustainability, and in my daily work, sustainability is both climate, which I will be focused on today, but also the social side of sustainability. So for the breakout session, I will definitely go to the session about how to retain people within the transport sector, because that's also a focus that I have in my daily work. I hope this is the one who will take me to my slides. Good. As mentioned, DFDS is both shipping and logistics company, so we have focus on water and the road. I will focus on the logistics sides in this part, but this is the broad spectrum that we have. To give you a little bit of insights, oh, this is a very bad color. You should be able to see a map of Europe here to to demonstrate our presence. We are in all over Europe with a main presence in Northern Europe, but also in the Mediterranean. DFDS, we are close to 14,000 people by now, both sea-based personnel and land-based personnel. So we are quite a big group with a lot of different people, but all of us is very passionate about the topic for today, which is sustainability. A little bit of history of what we've been working with. Generally in DFDS, being a responsible company and acting with responsibility is part of our culture, part of DNA. So making the shift into talking about climate, talking about sustainability hasn't been that hard for us. But back in 2020, we made and defined our climate action plan team for the first time. This is a team of people from different parts of the organization working dedicated on climate issues. It was people from division of logistics, the division of ferry. It was people with short-term focus and long-term focus, and at the same time also from a more reporting and compliance perspective. Then later on, we started making teams within the organization. So logistics division got their own sustainability team. In the ferry division, they had a sustainable fleet project team. So working very dedicated into the divisions on what we need to do to make this transformation happen. And now, as a later stage, we have made a decarbonization board and an actual decarbonization team reporting directly to our CEO, where we are focusing on the overarching infrastructures that is needed to make sure that we as a whole company is actually driving this agenda and making sure that we achieve the reductions that we have set out to. So making sure that we don't sub-optimize within each division, but instead making sure that when we make decisions, it's actually aligned across full of the company. So this is how we have worked with it on an organizational basis. But if we go to our big pain, but also our big motivation, what you see here is an overview of how emissions in DFDS is spread over our business for 2022. And I have two main things here that comes to my mind. One thing is that we emit and must emit emissions close to 4% of all equal to Danish emissions. That's quite a lot, being just one company. And at the same time, what we can see, it's also that it is the fuels that we use that are driving our emissions. A lot of companies, when you talk about sustainability in general, for many other companies, it will be scope 3, meaning it's the emission through your value chain that are the majority that you need to handle. But in our case, what we need to address is the fuels that we use, both in our ferries and in our trucks, and in general in operations. So this is really our motivation piece to see that this is what we need to address, and this is why we need to act, because we have quite a big footprint here, and this is what we need to address. Back in 2019, we started making the first climate strategy and climate targets for the ferry division. Later on came our targets for logistics division on road and the warehouses. And one target is a relative target and the other target is absolute, but what unites everything is that we have a target of reducing our emissions completely to climate neutrality in 2050. So this is where we are today. We have a team that's ongoing, evaluating, analyzing what's going on, what is possible to make sure that our targets are aligned, what is expected, and hopefully also making them even more aggressive going forward as the technologies are following us. What you can see on the right-hand side is a visualization on how we will transform our business. being a logistics and shipping company, we are extremely asset heavy. So we cannot just change the trucks from one day to another. We can't just change a vessel of 4,000 lane meters from one day to each other. So we need to make sure that it's a gradually transformation, and this will show you how we see us moving from the fossil-based fuels to more electric bias-based. We're going to be more efficient, and then in the end, it will be all for climate neutrality. So this is our way of illustrating that. If I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the logistics target, due to the conference we are today, this is what we worked with. As I mentioned, the logistics target is an absolute target, meaning we want to reduce our overall emissions with 50% in 2030. And that is including potential growth that we will also see. So this is a very aggressive target that we are looking into. At the same time, one thing is setting a target. The other part is also working. How do you work around it? For us, it's important that we have different pillars that you can see here. So one thing is to have the target. As I mentioned, the other part is also be able to turn it into a commercial offering, to be able to make it a value for our customers. At the same time, we need to focus on the operational side, making sure that we are as efficient as possible all the time, whether that being on electricity consumption or fuel use. We need to be innovating. We need to make sure that we are out there where the new technologies are being tested, so we can understand what would be relevant for our operation going forward. And in the end, we need to be communicating about it. We need to share the progress that we see, and we need to engage with our colleagues and our customers so we create the right culture. In the end, we have a really big belief and trust in transparency. We believe that the more we share, both in terms of data and knowledge, and what we can do, the better we have the opportunity of actually delivering on the targets we have set, both for us as an individual company, but also across the industry. No, it doesn't work. Here we go. All right, this is a way, in a very simple way, to illustrate DFDS as a business and how we see our climate transformation going forward. I won't go through all the details. You can see some of them, and I could speak for hours about this slide, but I think the main point and my main message here is that we are depending on electricity. Electricity for the e-trucks that we run, electricity for being part of the new fuels that we're going to use in the future, electricity for the warehouses. So for all, our sustainability journey really circles around electricity, and we will see that increase more and more. So that's the stepwise development we will take. We will also see us focusing on both buying and producing green energy, but I will talk a bit more about that later. On the roadmap for logistics specifically, what we are doing right now is that we have a high focus on implementing e-trucks. We have trucks running on HVO, and in general really have hardcore targets on the operational efficiency. Again, making sure that we don't use excess fuel or energy when it's not needed. On a longer term, we will also continue the implementation of the e-trucks, but at the same time, we will also start testing on hydrogen trucks to see if we can make that work in the business, and we will also start having a more structured focus on the land side, so having the warehouses and that whole infrastructure going through the review as well. And what lies behind all of this, again, I'm talking a lot about infrastructure, but that is because I believe we need a lot of the basic foundations to be able to scale this and to make this work. So again, one thing is data transparency. We need to have data from all of the operations to make sure that we can evaluate what is our performance. Are we doing good? Are we doing bad? Could we do anything else in identifying the spots where we could potentially be even better? So the whole data part is really good and really important for establishing the baselines. At the same time, energy production and energy charging, key for us in our business, that we have places where our e-trucks can be charged. Also, terminal equipment going electric. So that's really a critical infrastructure point that we are focusing a lot on. And then finally, green transport in general and energy management. We need to have extremely high focus on how do we use the energy and where do we use it and when. So that's also a key part of how we work with this. And just to bring a few concrete examples on what we do. On the first one here is the SunSwap trailer. I actually saw them in the exhibition, but we've begin to test out having the refrigerator trailers doing on the solar panels and the batteries, and what we can see for now, it actually works quite well. So I think we were one of the first companies actually starting to test these in production and with good experience. So one thing is, what can we do with the actual assets that we have? Another part is looking at the warehouses and the landside operation. Here we're looking into, can we update and make better and more energy efficient investments, making sure that our warehouses is using less electricity. That definitely also have an improvement. And then the one here, when we're looking into processes, number 3, here we are actually testing out to lower temperature at one point of the day when the electricity is cheaper, and then let it slowly rise during another part of the day. Again, optimizing and working with the elements that we have, also creating reductions. And then just a short example here from the seaside, which I also think is extremely important, and where we see a lot of energy efficiency and CO2 reductions right now, is actually speed. Just being able to be on the sea for half an hour longer on a 12-hour seafare can reduce emissions with 16%. So at least on the seaside, speed is really killing it all. So if we can reduce just a little bit, it actually has a massive impact. So those are some of the elements that we are also looking into. Sometimes it seems like it's the small operational tweaks that in the end can have a big impact. And it's these things that we are looking at, and we need to look at right now, as long as we don't have more sustainable fuels and that whole infrastructure aren't ready. This is what we can do right now with existing technology. So this is something that we're really focusing on, and the local teams are working on this. Going back to the data, I know I've touched upon it before, but for us it is really critical. I don't know about you, but what we get more and more of is also customer requests from customers wanting to know and understand their emissions through the work that we do for them. And if we cannot provide reliable data, we're not a trusted advisor and not a trusted supplier to our customers. As this whole topic or this whole movement is getting more and more specialized, so is the need and the requirement for data. So right now we're in a situation where we're almost going back and starting defining, okay, what is the right data, how do we need to measure, and what do we want to do, and then rolling it out across the business, because we need to have the same approach, we need to have the transparency, and we need to have the trusted data to be able to do this. And when we're talking about, I don't know how many trucks we have, 1,000 trucks running around, 125 locations, 60 vessels, terminals also, just being that and capturing the right information at the right time, combining it with customer data, full loads and part loads, empty mile running, and all these different elements that can impact emissions, then it's getting pretty critical. So that's why data is so extremely important for us. What we've succeeded in is actually delivering a customer dashboard where we can, in a Tableau overview, select the customer, and then we could get emissions for that year. So we are slowly beginning to also producing something that is usable and viewable for the outside world, and that will improve over time. So that's a big milestone for us. And that whole data function is also what is enabling us now to start launching our first green products. We have developed this insetting product based on the electric trucks driving around and the sustainable fuels that we have put on our vessels. So right now we actually have a solution where customers can buy transport from us, including certificates that will reduce CO2 in their Scope 3 emissions. So that was also something that we've been working on quite a lot. Again, going back to transparency, going back to the audit trail, we need to be completely 100% sure that no emissions are resold twice. So building that whole infrastructure that is being signed off by PwC to have the stamp so we can go to our customers and say this is actual and real reductions that are delivered here. It seems easy it looks easy when you just see it on the outside, but on the backside there's a lot of work behind this, and that's definitely something that we will keep on developing, making sure that we can increase this portfolio over time. And then the trucks, I've been mentioning it a few times. This is really something that, at least in DFDS, we are extremely proud of. When we made the order for the 125 Volvo trucks, that was the biggest order in one go of an e-truck in the world at that time. So that has been really close to our heart for a long time. And it took some time from we signed the deal to we actually got them, but now they're here and we see them being implemented and rolling out across Europe, and that's a really big thing. For me personally, I don't know, as was just mentioned, I'm coming from Copenhagen, and we just had the Copenhagen Pride Parade. As I mentioned, I'm also part of the People Sustainability, and here we saw 22 e-trucks running, being the main trucks in the full Pride Parade in Copenhagen on a Saturday sunny afternoon. That was a huge day in DFDS story, having both sustainability and people diversity in the streets at the same time, and with DFDS on the side. That was beautiful. So these are the trucks delivering that, but what they also deliver is, of course, attractive solutions to our customers. And we are really working with this. It's not an easy task. We do have some challenges. Some of them we can solve or at least handle ourselves, and that is identifying the right lanes, identifying the right customers, trying to make sure that we buy green electricity so that the truck is also actually green when they drive and not being based on black electricity. And then there are other things that we are a little bit more challenged by in terms of solving it ourselves, and that is, for example, grid stability and capacity. It's about the charging infrastructure. We do spend a lot of time investments in terms of having the assets running on the streets. It's also a big task to make sure that we have places to actually charge the trucks. So there are at least there are some challenges that we cannot just handle ourselves. If we could, we would. But there are something related to the whole infrastructure here that are a bit challenging. But just to summarize on that, this is how it looks right now. We have 20 trucks in Sweden, 10 in Denmark, 5 in Belgium, and 3 in Lithuania. We have 6 dedicated customers buying the transport from these trucks, and they are delivering emissions of 52 tons per year per truck. We have installed a lot of charging capacity, and going forward that will increase even more. We have dedicated partner contracts with electricity and charging providers to make sure that we can also develop that part of the business. And right now we see a coverage of green electricity of 97% on these trucks. So this is a really, really good picture, and that has just increased over time. And standing where I am today, I don't know if any of you reflects on why we don't have any UK trucks here, seeing that DFDS is also a big business in UK. But right now the reason is actually that we see that electricity is too expensive and diesel is too cheap. So the business case for running an e-truck in UK right now is a little bit challenging. But if that changes, of course, there will also be implemented e-trucks in the UK. But it's just to say that many of these different things, it is so depending on local infrastructure, local pricing, on where it makes sense to roll these things out. But this is how it looks, and those will only increase over time. So I'm talking a lot about electricity. As I mentioned in the beginning, it is a key focus area for us, but we are also looking into the warehouse side. And what we are doing here is having focus on energy production. So what can we actually do ourselves to make sure that we keep our operation running and as green as possible? And what you see here is our plan for solar installation of solar panels in our different warehouses across the DFDS operation. And here, on the other hand, there's a lot of UK sites. So here we actually see the UK side of the business being the front runner in terms of installing solar panels on the warehouses. Right now, I think last time we made a count, we were close to 2 million kilowatt hours, and right now the plan is to reach 6 million of our own production by 2025. Right now, it could potentially look that we will even increase that going forward, because we are rolling it out maybe a little bit faster than we thought originally. But again, it's one step at a time, and we're just taking it when it makes sense. But that's definitely also a key focus area for each warehouse, to see when do we have the opportunity and possibility of installing solar panels as well. So this is just to say electrification. We both focus on the geography, so where can we roll things out, and then we have a full palette of different things we can do, whether that being shore power solutions in the terminals. It's focusing on the charging side. It's about reducing lighting by installing LEDs. So we have many different tools, you can say, that we are going to use and implement where it makes sense. But it is a focus that is being rolled out across the business. This is an example for Ghent, how the operation looks today, with a lot of fossil fueled operated assets going around. And so this is a location heavily based on fossil fuels. But if we were going to think about this, because we have a lot of locations where road and sea meet each other, so if we actually look at that as just one single ecosystem, then we have the opportunity of maybe changing it. So if we think about electricity, installing that in one location, suddenly we have the power and the opportunity of rolling it out across. So this is not reality right now, but this is a vision of how we want to think about our business to make sure that we move away from the fossil fuels. Again, just the magnitude of need. I know it's all over the press as well. I know, and our CEO is also talking about this a lot, but the magnitude for green electricity, you cannot emphasize enough how important it is. If we are going to have vessels on sustainable fuels, it will just drive massive amount of green electricity. So that is something that we need to have a lot of focus on. And then finally, just to say that from our side, from DFDS, we really want to make this change. We are really ready to investing in all that's needed in terms of the asset and making sure that we are efficient as possible. But we cannot solve it alone. We need someone to support us in terms of making the grid large enough to draw all this electricity, making it green, and making the availability and the price reasonable for us as a commercial company to go into it as well. Because otherwise we will just not move, and that's not what we want to do. So that was a few highlights into from DFDS, what we are looking into and focusing on, and what is on our minds these days to make sure that we are moving and driving the sustainability agenda from our side. Thank you.